Florida State is finally recruiting at an elite level, but do they currently have a five-star silently committed to their 2024 class? We're going to share our thoughts and share a timeline for a possible public announcement later on in the video today. Florida State has a top 5 class in 2024, and the fireworks could get going again soon. One guy that we want to talk about that there's a lot of speculation on is Charles Lester. Charles Lester is a 5-star corner out of Sarasota, Florida. We've talked about him a ton on this channel. You guys know our thoughts on this kid. He's incredibly talented, and he's going to be great wherever he ends up signing. Obviously, we would hope that that's with the Seminoles. Today, he told On3's Joseph Hastings, I would say that Florida State is the leader right now in this process for me. If I had to choose right now, if I had to choose today, I would go there. This is big for a couple of reasons, and we're going to talk about those. Some of the reasons are bigger than you may or may not think. But Charles Lester telling everyone publicly that Florida State is his leader before he takes any official visits is massive for the Seminoles. Florida State has a chance to increase that lead with upcoming official and unofficial visits that they'll get him on campus for this summer. And we expect them to have a really, really good season this year that could only distance them from the pack as time goes. As a reminder, the 4 leaders that he's named right now, Florida State in the pole position, Alabama, Georgia behind that, and Ohio State in the mix as well. This is going to be a huge season for the Seminoles, not only on the field, but also on the recruiting trail. And we've told you in multiple videos about the 5 stars that they have a chance with, about some of the talent that they've already landed, and what the potential of their class is this season. Florida State gets a guy like Charles Lester and starts to do it on the defensive side of the ball. That defensive wave of recruiting momentum could be phenomenal. Offense has been absolutely loaded with guys like Cromenhoek, Davis. We obviously know about Landon Thomas. They've got 4 4-star wide receivers committed and other offensive linemen they're trending for. But when it comes to defense, Lester could be the absolute start of something insane. The biggest takeaway of this announcement or of this statement from him to me is something that I think most people are missing. We're going to get to that just as soon as we give some love to our friends over at Garnet and Gold. Of course, you guys know Garnet and Gold. You're diehard Seminole fans. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this video, go to garnetandgold.com to get all of your FSU shopping done. Use code NOSLAW. That's NOSLAW to get 15% off of your order. Whether you're looking for NIL, licensed apparel, throwback apparel. I posted a really, really cool Bobby Bowden shirt that I got the other day. They've got the best prices, they've got the best customer service, and we'll save you some money with code NOSLAW, NOSLAW. You should not be buying your FSU gear anywhere else. The last family-owned and operated retailer of FSU merchandise in Tally. Make sure you're shopping with them, whether in-store or online. Okay, here's what's huge about Lester making this statement. He said this publicly right after taking visits to UGA in Alabama. You guys know how recruiting works. There's very usually a visit high that these guys are on. And they usually say really, really good things about the places they just visited. And he said good things about Georgia, and he said good things about Alabama. But we know how this usually works. Guys take a visit, they have a visit high. That person or that team, that coach, that relationship ends up a lot of times being their leader or creeps back in so that things are even. But not in Lester's case. Just a week or so after taking some massive visits to SEC powers, Lester comes out and says, no, it's still the Noles. I think that's a great sign for FSU. In fact, it cannot be understated how big of an impact that truly is. Imagine visiting Kirby and Nick Saban, 2 of the best recruiters in the game, and then immediately going to the media and saying, yeah, Georgia and Alabama were great, but Florida State's still my leader. That is huge for Mike Norvell, and it's huge for what the Seminoles are doing on the recruiting trail this season. I hear the bagmen in Athens and Tuscaloosa are also pretty sharp, and so they're being made aware of what's going on. And the fact that Florida State leads, that's massive for the Noles. We've told you what was going to happen when Florida State became fully invested in football again. And I think they're at that point. What they're doing on the field, what they're doing in NIL, what they're doing from a relationship standpoint is within one of the top programs in the country. They've set themselves apart, and they are competing with the absolute big dogs, and that's where they're going to have to get back to. It's not about winning battles with Florida or Miami or any of these other schools. It's about going up against the absolute best and landing guys like Leicester. It's about landing guys like Landon Thomas, who you just pulled from UGA. That is when Florida State will eventually be back, and that's where they've got to get to if we ever want to compete for championships again. Now, relationships matter, NIL matters, and winning matters. Florida State's doing something that very few programs in the country are doing right now, and that's combining all three of them. We know that Mike Norvell and his staff do a great job with relationships, but it is frankly hard to recruit when you're winning 3 and 5 games a year. NIL is absolutely a strength of the Seminoles right now, but it wasn't necessarily the case just a year or so ago. And so now that all three of those things are in conjunction, you're going to see the dividends pay off in a massive, massive way for the Noles. So the question, is Leicester a silent commit to Florida State right now? I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I'd go that far. I don't know that I'd say he's a silent commit and he's currently locked in with Florida State staff. I actually have my own thoughts on silent commits, and I think that's an interesting concept just in general. But I will tell you this. I've spoken with some people that are pretty close to the recruitment, spoken with some people within the building, and there is a large, large confidence that Charles Leicester will indeed pick the Seminoles as his school that he signs with. I will tell you that a kid getting done with a visit at UGA and Bama and then immediately giving Florida State and Mike Norvell's staff a public endorsement is about as close as you can get to a commitment, whether silent or public. As far as a timeline for Leicester, we talked about that in the beginning of the video. On3 pointed out that he could take his recruitment all the way up until the early signing period in December, and I've spoken with some folks that think that that's definitely a possibility. But others close to the program at Florida State think that they have a chance to get a commitment this summer. They think that if Florida State can knock their official visit out of the park, if they can generate some recruiting momentum and they can get some other guys in the fold, that Leicester could pop earlier than that. Now, we'll see what happens. That's ultimately on him and up to Charles Leicester to decide when he wants to make things official, whether they're silent right now or not. But I do think there's a chance that this could happen just prior to both the high school season and Florida State's college football 2023 season. We've told you about how special that season's going to be, and if Leicester does take it to December, I do think that how well the Noles do on the field will certainly be another feather in Mike Norvell's cap and eventually land them the talented 5-star prospect. Either way, it's great news for the Seminoles that FSU leads right now. You want to know where else FSU leads? Well, in number of fans when you compare it to Alabama. Want to know why that's huge for the FSU market and why that's huge for the Noles in conference realignment? You can do me a favor and click right here.